And countless administration officials lied and continued to peddle this story that the attack was a spontaneous response to a viral YouTube video. And lastly, the rise of ISIS and the establishment of a caliphate was predicted by U.S. intelligence in 2012. Now, this information was disseminated in intelligence circles almost a year and a half before Obama tried to downplay the extremist threat by referring to ISIS as the JV Squad. The same GOP-led House panel that was probing the 2012 Benghazi attack wanted to have a second hearing this month with Hillary Clinton once it was revealed that she was using her own private email server during her tenure as Secretary of State. And of course, once she revealed that she wiped that server clean herself, now the committee has had to postpone that hearing due to the failure of the current Secretary of State, John Kerry, to produce a single solitary email response to their request and subpoena. Unfortunately for Hillary, while she's busy playing hide and seek with the press, these documents have now surfaced, proving that at the very least she lied under oath, making the confiscation of her private email server even more necessary.
Well, 2016's presidential race is shaping up to be a big budget horror film. We could call it Bride of Frankenfood versus SOB, Son of a Bush. And of course, we see that Hillary is the bride of Frankenfood. It looks like it's costing her a great deal of support in Iowa amongst voters who initially liked her until they found out her close connection with GMO corporations. It looks like Monsanto is political poison as well as pesticide. Hillary Rodham Clinton's ties to agribusiness giant Monsanto and her advocacy for the industry's genetically modified crops have environmentalists in Iowa calling her the bride of Frankenfood. Quote, I was surprised because these women were really pushing for Hillary until they found out about the Monsanto connection. Then they dropped her like a hot potato. Maybe that's a GMO potato, you know, the ones that they've been engineering for McDonald's. And then on the other side, we have son of a Bush, Jeb Bush. Maybe we ought to call the GOP the GOB, Generations of Bushes. There's an op-ed piece that came out this weekend from Maureen Dowd of the New York Times. She says, he is heavy. He's my brother. And she talks about this admission that he had this last week when he was asked, would he have invaded Iraq if he had been in his brother's place? And he said, yeah, sure, I would have. We know he would have. We don't even need to ask that question. And of course, some others are also putting in along supporting him. We also have Scott Walker, who's running for president, said the same thing. He said, any president would have likely taken the actions that Bush did with the information that he had. Nevertheless, as Maureen points out, it's about what we knew then, not what we know now. She said it took a Herculean effort of imagination, manipulation, and deception to concoct the information that propelled the invasion, occupation, and destruction of a country that had nothing to do with 9/11. Ah, yes, but 9/11 itself was a piece of imagination, manipulation, and deception. But here's the takeaway, I think, that's interesting, because, you know, it's not just Jeb Bush who is a son of a Bush. There's also most of the people that are going to be in this broad GOP field, with the exception of just Rand Paul, I believe. He said bluntly last week, she points out, every time we've toppled a secular strongman, we've gotten chaos and more radical Islam. And we're all less safe because of it, said Rand Paul of Kentucky. He said, I think I could say that at the Iowa Republican Convention and still be well received with it. Yes, I think so too. I think it's time the American people are starting to wake up, that our perpetual wars, our standing armies, our empire all over the world is making us less safe, not more safe. And it is bankrupting us. Well, stay with us. Right after the break, we're going to have an interview with our reporters in Cleveland, Joe Biggs and Jakari Jackson. They're there, of course, to cover what might happen as yet another grand jury indictment is coming up from yet another case of police abuse. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Well, yet another case of egregious police brutality is being considered in Cleveland. After 3 years, the case is now before a grand jury. An indictment, or possibly just letting the officer off, is very imminent. We have a buildup in tensions there, people concerned that there may be rioting if there's not an indictment. Our reporters Jakari Jackson and Joe Biggs are on the scene. Well, joining us now from Cleveland is Joe Biggs. And of course, Joe, you're there with Jakari Jackson, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
So tell us briefly what happened and why this is a big deal, why this is a concern to the people in Cleveland.
Well, November will be 3 years when this incident happened. There were about 13 officers involved in a car chase. They were in pursuit of two unarmed black assailants, whatever you would want to call, in this pursuit, and it ended at a schoolyard. Now, what happened was there were some shots fired prior to the vehicles coming to a halt. Then Officer Michael Brello jumped out of his squad car and onto the hood of the two unarmed suspects' vehicle and fired 15 shots into the windshield. At that point, 5 of those shots were fatal, and that's what killed the 2 unarmed suspects. This is a big deal because we keep seeing this rise in police brutality across the country, and for some reason, a lot of these officers continue to get off when, in fact, they were completely in the wrong. Yeah. And that's why you're seeing these huge uprisings, these riots that are happening, the Ferguson, the Baltimore. And that's the question. That's what everybody wants to know out here. Will this be the next Ferguson? Will this be another Baltimore? So everyone's on high alert. Tensions are high. You know, we know now at this point in time that the National Guard is on alert. They're standing by to react. The police officers in this area have been seen by some locals with riot shields hanging out the back of the trunk. So everyone's just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. And so far, we know that tomorrow, at the earliest, we could have an answer as to whether or not he will be charged with 2 counts of manslaughter or he will get lesser charges. And that's what we have to worry about. If that happens and he gets 2 lesser charges, I have to say that I think that things will heat up here in Cleveland.
Yeah, you said that they were assailants. I think they were just fleeing the police. Is that correct? Yes. Had they done anything or other than flee the police?
At that point, I don't know. I just know that they were fleeing. I don't have all the details at that point.
And I think that before he jumped up on the hood of the car and emptied a new clip, that he took the time after the other officers with him had shot, and I think it was, what was it, about 150 shots. The car had stopped.
Yeah, it was about 132 shots.
Yeah, the car had stopped. And what he did was he put in a new magazine in his pistol and jumped on the hood and fired it. So very, very aggressive behavior. That's why he's been charged. So in terms of what you've seen, though, and in terms of buildup of the National Guard, have you seen anything unusual other than reports of some people with some shields hanging out of their trunks? Or
not so far in the downtown area. It's not like we saw in Baltimore when we were out there in the past few weeks ago, how there were armed people on every corner. It hasn't got to that point yet, but I do have a feeling that if word comes out that they will come to a verdict tomorrow, you'll begin to see those National Guard troops move into the area, and you'll start seeing riot police out around the corners, because this is the area where they're expecting the riots to happen. Just down the street, maybe a quarter of a mile away, is a Justice Center where that verdict's going to happen. So, this is going to be a lot like Baltimore in a sense, but if it happens, it's going to be bad because there's so much stuff crammed tight in this downtown area. I just hope that people are prepared and ready. There's already talks of a lot of the schools possibly going to be shutting down, different of the businesses saying that they might close down, warning their employees to be on high alert.
Well,
so,
that's a good point, Joe. How much notice are they going to give to schools and to businesses to prepare for this? Are they just going to spring it on them in some evening or in the afternoon sometime?
That's the thing I'm concerned about myself. We kind of have a leg up with this case this time around to kind of do the right thing. You would think, people should have learned from the mistakes in Ferguson and in Baltimore. You think that the people here would kind of know how to do it, but it seems like they're saying, tomorrow at the earliest, we'll find out. And that's what happened in November in Ferguson, if you guys remember. They told us when we got there, it's going to happen tomorrow. Then tomorrow became the next day, and the day after, and the day after. And all that happened was that built up tension and aggression in the people who wanted to seek justice. And eventually, we know what happened. I mean, the entire city of Ferguson burnt to the ground. So hopefully they'll end this swiftly and quick and get it done in a manner of time that's fitting, instead of dragging it on like they did in Ferguson, and the outcome was just 10 times worse.
Well, and of course, that presumes that they don't want to have riots. Many of us believe that perhaps that's what they wanted in Ferguson, based on the many, many things that they did, none of which made any sense. And of course, if they wanted to not have these riots, the prosecutors would do their duty and bring charges against police officers when they do egregious things like this, not just let them go.
Yeah, I just hope it's not going to happen in the middle of the night at 8 o'clock at night like they did in Ferguson, when everyone's standing outside of the building, lined up, just ready to attack. You know, that's the worst time. Do it in the morning, give people time to prepare, and hopefully they'll do it the right way, and we won't see Cleveland burned down to the ground.
Exactly. That's why we said that we thought they were doing it deliberately, because that was the time that they had riots in the past at precisely the same place, precisely the same time. They wait to that point and release the verdict. Well, thank you, Joe. We'll be looking for more reports and see what happens there. Hopefully, justice will be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for tonight's news. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. If you're not a Prison Planet TV subscriber, please do that and support our operation. We depend on your subscriptions to operate. Of course, if you are a subscriber to Prison Planet TV, you'll get it every night as it happens, Monday through Friday at 7 Central. You'll also be able to share all of Alex Jones's documentaries with up to 20 friends, as well as the live news broadcasts. Join us again tomorrow night at 7 Central.